Good evening and welcome to Monsters Among Us. I'm your guide, Derek Hayes. It's a real pleasure to be back with you here in the studio. And I hope you all had an amazing Thanksgiving holiday, filled with turkey, gravy, mashed potatoes, appreciation, and of course some football. I had a great holiday myself. I was solely in charge of Thanksgiving dinner. And the reviews are in. Apparently I nailed it. But we're back and we're ready to tackle the last couple of weeks of what we around here call spooky season. And tonight I have a real treat for you. Tonight's collection of calls all stem from the same place. Not a location here in the States per se, but a very close neighbor with all kinds of scary monsters, ghosts, and folklore. So, without further ado, we present to you our collection of stories from south of the border. Tonight's calls all stem from the land of the sun and the land of the Aztecs and our next-door neighbors to the south. Folks, I present to you Tales from Mexico. And we begin this episode with a call from Patty in the state of Ohio.
Hi, this is Patty from Toledo, Ohio. I was actually just listening to the show, Season 8, Episode 11, and you mentioned the forest fires and if someone could summon some rain. And it reminded me of something that happened to me and my sister some years ago. It's probably been at least 10 years, if not more. We were in Mexico visiting family in the state of Durango. And at the time, they had been going through a drought. I think it had been like a year, maybe over a year. And growing up, we would always drive down there and stay a while. And it seemed like every time we went, we would bring the rain with us. It would be a drought, we'd get there and within a couple days of us arriving, it would rain for a week or something. And it seemed like we always just brought the rain. On this occasion, there was a drought, and me and my sister were like, well, there's no rain to bring, because here back home at the time, actually, it had been fairly dry. So we were, I guess, just being silly, and remembered a chant that was in a movie, The Secret Garden, from the 90s. In the movie, this little boy is trying to summon his father. He's away and he wants his father to return home. So these kids go out on this beach or whatever and say some little chant, and his dad ends up coming home. Anyways, this little chant, for whatever reason, kind of always stuck with us. We watched that movie a lot. But we remembered and we were like, oh, let's try it. We just changed, a couple of the words instead of, it being the dad, we make it the rain. And we did this. We're walking down some little street. I think we were walking like one of my aunt's houses or something. And we're just doing this chant. And that was that. Later that day, or maybe even the next day, my sister and I decided to go take a nap. So we went to lay down, and we were sharing a bedroom. And there was 2 beds next to each other with a little nightstand in between. And we take our nap. And I've always had these weird experiences growing up, but I was sleeping and my sister woke me up because I was crying in my sleep. And I had been dreaming, I guess, that there was some old woman that I somehow knew really wasn't an old woman, but it looked like an old woman, was trying to hurt my sister. We were somewhere, and I just see this old witch lady, whatever, trying to attack my sister. And I'm trying to help her, and I can't. And that's what makes me start crying in the dream. And my sister hears me, and she wakes me up. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that was just a dream. I'm so glad you're okay. And, since I was crying, she knows that I've always had these weird dreams growing up. She asked me what it was, and I told her that, some old woman was trying to hurt her. And she just got really wide-eyed and said that she had just been having a nightmare about some old witch who was standing over the bed trying to hurt her. I've never experienced anything like that where someone sees what I saw, what I dreamt, whatever you want to call it. I've often wondered if maybe they're out-of-body experiences and I don't know it. I don't know how to control it. I don't know how to... It just happened. So it really weirded me out. Both of us. It weirded us both out that we both saw the same thing. It was really trippy. Within a couple of days of this experience that we had, it started raining, and it actually rained the rest of the time that we were there. I mean, it was just a movie. Sure, it wasn't a real chant, but I guess when you believe in something, or if you give it enough belief, maybe that gives it power. I don't know. I was raised Catholic. I don't practice it. I consider myself to be more spiritual than religious, whatever that means. But I do believe in the power of prayer, because essentially prayers are like chants. Maybe we did that. I don't know. Maybe we tapped into something that we weren't supposed to. Then this witch showed up. I don't know. It was trippy. It was a weird experience. Did we summon the rain? Did we really summon rain? That's just, I don't know. It was weird. Anyways, that's my story. And thanks for your time.
Thank you, Patty. The power of belief, I wonder. Or perhaps the power of a witch. Whatever it was, I'll remember this call come next September, when our local fire season hits its fever pitch. Maybe Patty can do a little chant for us folks living up here in this tinderbox. Well, it's awesome stuff, Patty, and we thank you again for taking the time to call. Now, folks, with the 10th largest population in the world, and a history that goes back at least 10,000 years, Mexico is the perfect place to produce a ghost. And here to support that claim is Luis. Please welcome him to the program.
Hey, Derek. My name is Luis. I'm calling in from Farmington, New Mexico. Just want to tell you a story about that happened to me last summer. We were on vacation in Cancun. Flew from Cancun to our friends of ours' hometown. It's called Nueva Chihuahua, Mexico. So it's an old little town. Been around for a long time. So what happened to me was we pulled up to our friends' aunt's house, which is an old house, and we unloaded everything. They sent us to go get drinks. It was broad daylight. We went to the store, got drinks, whatever. We came back. We pulled over, whatever. We were getting stuff out. I was in the passenger seat. I got out, and I was starting to get the drinks out, and I heard somebody call my name. They were like, "Hey, Luis." And I thought it was my friend that was driving. I thought he was the one calling me. So I thought it was weird, right? So I grabbed the drink, and then he walks around, gets out of the driver's seat, and I'm like, "Hey, dude, did you call my name?" And he just looks at me, he's like, "No." I'm like, "Are you sure?" He's like, "Yeah, why?" I was like, "Because I just heard somebody call my name." I'm like, okay, whatever. We walked inside, so, I just kind of just sitting there thinking about it. I told his mother-in-law, hey, just the weirdest thing just happened to me. She's like, "What happened?" I just heard somebody call my name, outside. And she's like, "Go show me where." So I went and showed her where it happened, and she just got kind of hey, she's like, they said that there's a lady that is seen walking through here at night, like a ghost lady, you know? And I'm like, for real? She's like, yeah. I'm like, that's crazy. So I had a ghost call my name, and that was kind of freaky. One side of that house is, I guess haunted because they hear things. They see that lady walking through the side of this window. They hear stuff moving around at night. So kind of creepy. Thought it was a cool story I would like to share. But thanks, man.
Thank you, Luis. Now, typically, this is where I would list the most haunted places in Mexico. But frankly, I don't think any of you want to sit here and listen to me butcher a bunch of Spanish names. So instead, I'll just link to that list. And I'll tell you that Mexico is packed to the gills with stories of ghosts, spirits, and poltergeists. So for Luis to hear a disembodied someone call his name there, that probably shouldn't surprise anyone. Creepy stuff, Luis. We thank you again for making the call. Now, folks, it's time for a quick break, but when I come back, more tales from down south. Don't go anywhere.
Over the last many months, it seemed like we suddenly got it.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. The holidays can be a joyful time filled with beloved traditions, but it's also important to take time for yourself and create your own traditions around self-care. Taking time for therapy could be a new tradition you start this year, because while the holiday season is merry and cheerful, it can also be stressful, exhausting, and lonely for many. Therapy has been there for me during the most difficult and stressful times of my life, and I really think the right therapist who you can speak to freely, without judgment, can make a huge difference in your life and overall well-being. BetterHelp therapists work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed in the U.S. A short questionnaire helps you get matched with a therapist that meets your needs and preferences. And if for some reason you're not vibing with your therapist, you can switch therapists at any time. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is one of the world's largest online therapy platforms, and it works with an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session based on over 1.7 billion client reviews. This December, start a new tradition by taking care of you. Our listeners get 10% off at betterhelp.com/MAU. Again, that's betterhelp.com/MAU.
Like you know to check the weather first.
Get comfortable and rehydrate and everything.
Now, wouldn't you know, Mexico is a bit of a UFO hotspot. Even as a kid, I took notice of just how many UFO reports came out of that country, especially Mexico City. Now, I'm going off of my aging memory here, but I remember the television show Sightings covering Mexican UFOs quite frequently back in the late 90s. And that coverage had an obvious influence on me, for whatever reason. And Jaime Muzan, a researcher, journalist, and TV personality there in Mexico City, seemed to be the gateway to many of these sightings. Sightings that coincided with strange natural events, like volcanoes erupting, or a total solar eclipse. Now, if any of this rings any bells, and you'd like to dig a little deeper on the subject, I tossed a few links up in the show notes for you to explore. Like I always do. Including a link to at least one of those sightings packages. But anyway, on the topic of UFOs, we present our next submitter. Please welcome Joel to tonight's program.
Hey, my name is Joel. This is just a story that I want to tell from my dad. My dad is from Chihuahua, Mexico. Where my dad's from, he's from like a small village. Everybody knows everybody. And I'll tell you, I was probably like 10 years old when this happened. So I'm 31 years old right now. So 2010-ish, that's probably around the time that we went to go visit my people over there. The village was so small that my uncle, he actually gave me money to go buy him a pack of cigarettes, and I was able to get it because they know everybody. Just to give you an idea of everybody knows everybody, you know what I'm saying? There was like one church, there was a basketball court in the middle of the city. I don't think there's any clubs or anything. All the roads are dirt. This is like pretty much everybody's family. If you're not from there, nobody knows who you are, you know what I'm saying? But if you're from there, everybody knows who you are. So, like, it's kind of hard to really describe unless you've been there. What I'm trying to get at is there's that little village, and then there's hills. Like, it's surrounded by hills. There's streams, waterfalls. My family's got a little ranch over there. And here's where things get weird. So at night, when you look into the hills, you'll see like a spark. The way that I can explain it is like a flare. It just flares and then it just disappears. And the flare color is yellow. It's not red. It's not pink. It's yellow. Like it just flares and then it just disappears. It's weird because nobody's up there in the mountains. My dad says that he asked people around the little village, and everybody can see it. Everybody can see it. But nobody knows what's up there. Two of my uncles and my dad went up there. And they went to the mountains because they thought it might just be like, for some reason, the word oil is coming up to my mind. So I think that they thought like, okay, so somebody's like doing something with oil. And I have no idea why that comes to my mind, but it does. And we went there to go visit my aunts. At the same time, my dad and his brothers, they wanted to go and see what this is about. We always see these lights every weekend. We always see these lights every night. Let's go over there and figure out what are these lights. So my dad went over there, and it was me and my brother and my cousin Alan. My cousin Alan was 12 years old. I was 9 or 10. And my brother was 12 years old. And we stayed at my uncle's house with the walkie-talkie. My dad and my two uncles, they went into the mountains to look for these lights with the walkie-talkie. And so they had to be like 2 or 3 miles away. But all you can see, it looked like a video game a little bit. Because you can see like the flashlight, going left, going right. And then we're telling them like, we can see the flash over here. Go that way. Go to left. Go to left. And they go to left. And then you can see the flash. Go to the right. Go to the right. Go to the right. And it just seemed like everywhere that they went, the flash was in that other direction. It's like the flash was playing with them. And it's weird because it's like, what is this flash? And what is this flash that the whole village can see? But at the same time, nobody's talking about it. They're just, in this small village, they just say, hey, it is what it is. And to me, it's crazy. But I still remember when me and my cousin and my brother were watching my dad and my two uncles go into the hills and try to find it, and we see the flash of lights. And we said, hey, it's right behind you. And nothing. They said, no, it's pitch black. They said they couldn't see nothing. To this day, it's just weird. My dad's been back over there to visit his sister plenty times. Sometimes him and his brother will go to the hills and go and try to figure it out. And my dad said, all I had was my flashlight. And he said, I can't see nothing, but I'm trying to figure it out. So he turns his light off, thinking that, like, if it's a spirit or whatever, it's going to pop up and show itself. And my dad said he had his flashlight off, and then he heard heavy breathing, like... And my dad said, "Oh my God, I think I found it." And he was scared. And my dad clicked his flashlight on. It was just a horse. A horse was sleeping. But he thought it was like a demon or something. And at the end of the day, he just turned his flashlight on, and it was just a horse standing right in front of him. But he was scared. Been a fan for probably 2 or 3 years. Like I said, caller from Bowling Green. Go Falcons. Yeah, man. Keep doing what you do. Thank you, man.
Roll along, friend. And thank you for calling in. Now, I'm not going to lie, this little plot of land sounds pretty awesome. And I think I need to find myself a piece of land similar to it. My own personal paradise, complete with the unusual lights that Joelle's family saw on the ridge. And you know, I love the effort made here to find whatever was causing those lights. And the whole scenario reminds me a bit of the Marfa lights out of Texas. But what these strange lights were: ball lightning, a piezoelectric charge release, or swamp gas, or maybe ghosts or even aliens. I cannot tell you, but I can tell you coming across a horse in a situation like that will leave you frozen in your boots, if only for that split second. So awesome stuff, Joelle. We appreciate the phone call. And be sure to let us know if the mystery is ever solved. Now, folks, if you have a story you would like to share, give our hotline a call at 888-608-NIGHT. That's 888-608-NIGHT. Or record your story as a voice memo and email it to me at monstersamonguspodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about Monsters Among Us Jr. A new episode drops this Wednesday. And that number is 833-MAU-KIDS. Or you can send an email over to monstersamongusjr@gmail.com. No matter how you reach out, we can't wait to hear from you. And we can't wait to hear from this next caller either. Calling in from Mexico, please welcome Karen to the program.
Hey there, my name is Karen. I'm on the Baja Peninsula in lovely Mexico. I'm from San Francisco area. Lived here 3 years. Best decision I ever made. Anyways, I remember you talking about the Anza-Borrego Triangle. So back in 2008, I went camping in that beautiful part of the world with my sister and her husband. It was between Christmas and New Year's. We were on the way to San Felipe in Mexico. You know, we had a campfire and just hanging out, nothing fancy. I saw what I thought was a plane, like one that's coming towards you. Very, very bright light. I know this has been reported by other people many times. It like turned into like 20 little lights, and they started zipping and zapping every which way, and then they'd go back to the center and make that one big light, and then they made a formation of like a line, and then they'd separate and go all different ways, but it was like zip, 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 like super fast. This was like before drones, and it was far enough away. It was looking west. It was my first time in that park, so I thought it was maybe the Air Force Base in San Diego or something like that, but I've never heard of technology like that. But I looked on the interwebs and actually saw some videos of the same phenomena. I don't remember where. I think it was other locations. But then I heard your podcast about the Anza-Borrego Triangle or something. Yeah, I don't know. It was just very peculiar. Okay, be well. Bye.
Thank you, Karen. Incredible. And exactly the type of thing you can expect to see in the infamous Borrego Triangle. Now, admittedly, using this story is a bit of a cheat, as it doesn't exactly take place in Mexico. But the call does come to us from south of the border, and that Borrego Triangle that I just mentioned ends on the U.S.-Mexico border in a place called Jacumba Hot Springs. So I think this is close enough to qualify here tonight. Now, as for the craft that Karen saw, like I said, that's par for the course in that unusual location. So if you're in SoCal and you're looking for a little escape, rent a place or a campsite in Borrego Springs or Julian or Anza, anywhere in that direction, frankly. Post up at night with some binoculars and a plane identifier app, and go enjoy yourself. I promise you'll see something that'll leave you stumped. And from the sounds of things, I think Karen can promise that as well. Now, folks, in regards to UFOs in Mexico, a survey conducted in June of 2019 suggests that more than 58% of the people surveyed in Mexico claim to believe in the existence of extraterrestrial life. And in a similar survey, also conducted in June of 2019, more than 76% of the people surveyed there in Mexico said they had never witnessed such an event, while almost 13.5% affirmed that they have indeed witnessed a UFO. That info courtesy of a company called Statista. Now, when I return, we're going to explore a couple of Mexican folklore staples. But first, a quick ad break. Don't touch that dial.
And I'm sure tonight you're going to probably need
the part of a legacy that never stops.
Now, sometimes edibles can be a little too intense. If you're looking for something that just makes you feel good instead of too high, check out Lumi Gummies. Consistent, mellow, and super delicious. Lumi Gummies are specifically designed to make you feel good, not stoned. Whether you're looking for an end-of-day de-stressor, a midday mood boost, or help getting the best sleep ever, Lumi Gummies is a strain that's right for you. I've been pretty stressed lately, which makes falling asleep quite difficult. But one Lumi Gummy an hour before bed makes my eyelids feel heavy, and I'm able to get some much-needed rest without feeling groggy the next day. Lumi Gummies are available nationwide. Go to lumigummies.com, that's L-U-M-I, gummies.com, and use code MAU for 30% off your order. Again, that's L-U-M-I, gummies.com, and use code MAU. Lumi Gummies with code MAU.
Call me and I'll show you all of your options.
Now, of course, we cannot have a collection of calls from Mexico and not mention the infamous La Llorona. So here to help us fill our quota is Omar, by way of the state of Illinois.
Hey, what's up, Derek? My name is Omar. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. And I want to tell you the time where I think I saw the Llorona. I was in Mexico. This happened around 2002, 2001, I believe. Well, me and my parents and my sister, we went to go vacation in Mexico to visit one of my uncles. And this one night, I had like this very intense dream where I was walking on a beach by myself. And this lady came up to me and she aggressively just grabbed me. And she grabbed me and she asked me, "Do you know where my daughter is?" in Spanish. And I said no. And when I said no, she let out like this very like intense scream. Like it was this in my face. And it was so lifelike that I woke up from my dream. And when I woke up from my dream, there was clearly a lady standing right on the edge of the bed. So I woke up, this lady standing there. She's see-through. She's wearing a white nightgown, and I could see her hair. It was like covering her shoulders. Her head was tilted sideways. She had her mouth open, but I couldn't make out the features in her face. And I could clearly see her standing there. So I thought it was my mom. So I started going, Mom, Mom. And my sister, who was sleeping next to me, she woke up and she's like, who are you talking to? And I was like, there's somebody standing right there. And I don't know if my sister saw it too, but she was like, turn the light on, turn the light on. And the light switch was like an arm's distance away from me. So I got the courage and I got up and I turned the light on. And as soon as I turned the light on, the person that was standing there was gone. But I clearly remember her. I clearly saw somebody standing there. Like, she was wearing a white nightgown. I could see right through her. I could see her hair. I could see her head. I could see her mouth wide open. And yeah, I think it might have been the Llorona, or it might have been just some lady trying to scare me. But yeah, that's my story. And thank you very much for your show. I love it. Keep it spooky. Thank you.
Thanks, Omar. Well, folks, what do you think? La Llorona, the weeping woman, the crying woman. It sort of sounds like that's what Omar experienced. But you know, there is one detail that makes me hesitate. Or the lack of a detail, perhaps. No, I'm not an expert on the La Llorona legend, but isn't she supposed to haunt bodies of water and not bedrooms? Would that make the woman Omar experienced just a regular old ghost? Or does La Llorona bend the rules from time to time? Well, if so, that certainly doesn't make this story any less scary. But I promised La Llorona, and I aim to over-deliver. So here with yet another experience, an experience that does take place along a body of water. Please welcome Phil, out of Parts Unknown.
Hey Derek, this is Phil. So, I had to have been like about 9 or 10. By this time my parents were already divorced. My mom moved us out to a country house right on the outskirts of town. It wasn't so far away from town. You could walk into town. The town was kind of expanding at that time. So they had some new houses built up back to the left-hand side of our house. And if you go right, it should take you out into the country. So one day my mom said she's going out with some friends, left me in charge of the kids. One of her friends came over, left her kids there with us. Mind you, I have to be better, 9 or 10. Back then it wasn't too uncommon for the parents to leave their kids by themselves. It wasn't the first time. But it was the first time in this new house. They take off, I have to say, about 7:30 p.m. And it's me, my 3 brothers, and 2 of our friends. So we're just, sitting there watching TV. My brother's playing the PS2 in the room, and eventually about 9:30, everybody's pretty much asleep. Me and one of the other boys that my mom's friend had taken over was awake, and we were watching TV. As I recall, it was music videos actually back on MTV. And I just get this uneasy feeling in my stomach. So, like you think you have to go to the bathroom, but you don't. And something kept drawing me to my window. Mind you, in this house we had a big, maybe 4-foot by 8-foot window. Nothing in the middle, just one big panel of glass. I look out the window, and from my house to the street, it's about a football field length. Trees in between. We live in the middle of fields. Plum trees, actually. I remember seeing this white glowing fog. Not sure what it was at first. Kind of stuck on it, and it's walking along with the road. Mind you, behind my house, about another football field back behind us, there's a river. And I see this fog walking towards the river, kind of, you know what I mean? Catches my attention. I'm stuck on it. I wake up the boy that was next to me because he had fallen asleep. And he's looking. He says he doesn't see nothing. I look back. The white figure was gone, whatever it was. And I close the window, and I'm just like, what the heck was that? So he goes to the bathroom. As he goes to the bathroom, I look back out the window. There's this lady standing in front of the house. I'm going to say about 100 feet from my house, just looking at the house. And I keep hearing this cry, like a whimper, like she's whining about something. And I close the window again, and I'm just like, what? Look back out, and this time she's walking back away, back towards the river. And I can still hear the crying. My friend comes back out, and I'm like, look at this. And he looks, he goes, there's nothing there. I look back out behind him, and there's nothing there. My mom came, and I told her what it was, you know what I mean, what I saw and everything. And she kind of brushed it off, but I talked to my tia, my aunt, and she explained to me that what I saw was a lady called the Llorona, or the crier, something like that. And the story is, I guess she was going to get married to this guy, but in order for her to get married to this guy, she had to get rid of the children she had. I think it was 2, if I'm not mistaken, and she took him to the edge of a cliff, sat him down, gave him ice cream, and I guess pushed him. She went back to go tell the guy what she had done, but she ended up coming back, and the guy was with another girl. She ran to that same cliff and I guess jumped off and killed herself, and I guess it says that she's on the roam looking for her 2 kids. I don't know if it was her. Can't really explain what it was, but I do know I saw a lady all white. The only thing that was really dark on her were like the outlines of her face. You could definitely see her face, but she had kind of like a veil on, but not covering her face, just like kind of draping down to the side. She was about the same size as my mom. I'm gonna say 5'8", around that height. She was an adult woman, and that's what I saw. And that one right there really left like a eerie feeling in my body. Never went outside my house again in the night. Mind you, in the country, I mean, you hear a lot of stuff, coyotes and stuff, and as a kid you get scared, but this right here was just something different. I had never seen something so defying, something so real-like, but yet white and misty. But that's what I saw, and yeah, that was my experience with that one. Thanks.
Thank you, Phil, for making the call. Now, the story that I know about La Llorona has her drowning her children in a river. So maybe there are several variations to the La Llorona story. And if so, perhaps there is a version where she stands on the end of your bed. Perhaps our friend Omar is onto something. But regardless of the details, the legend of La Llorona is deeply rooted in and around Mexico. Just ask anyone that's claimed to have seen her. Thank you again, gentlemen, for taking the time to call in. Now, before we move on, like I said earlier, La Llorona is a Mexican staple, but she's not the country's only well-known legend. There is also the El Chupacabra, translated to goat sucker, first reported in Mexico in the early 2000s. Now, descriptions vary, but most describe a hairless, skinless dog with protuberances down its spine and bright blue eyes. Then there's the Alush, a knee-high trickster figure from Mayan folklore, believed to aid farmers in their crop harvests, but may turn malevolent if they feel they've been wronged. Mayan communities still leave offerings for these beings, very similar to, but not identical to, the gnome-like duende, also found in the region, or the El Sisamite, commonly referred to as the Mexican Bigfoot, although reports have emerged from Belize, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Guatemala. Eyewitness accounts describe an unusually large, upright bipedal creature, covered in dark fur, no thumbs, 4 backward-facing toes, and it's purported to feast on berries and humans. Then there's the Lechuza, the owl witch. Legends tell of a powerful sorceress who made a dark pact to transform into a giant owl, revenge-seeking, or sent to torment evildoers. Donning white feathers and red eyes, some say she carries her victims away in her beak, while others claim she drives victims mad with her piercing shriek. And then there's also whatever the hell this thing is, in Noelia's story, out of my state of California.
Hi everyone, my name is Noelia. I'm calling from San Diego, California. However, this story is not mine, it's my mother's from Degollado, Mexico. This happened to her when she was a preteen. She used to live in a little house pretty much in the middle of nowhere with a bunch of land in the back, and there was this big tree. One day, my mom was walking out of her house heading towards the tree when she spotted something that she describes as what looked like, this is going to sound crazy, but burnt skin. She says that if you've ever seen those like cow rugs that are like shaven down, that are like shaped, it's hard to explain, but if you know, I think you know if you've ever seen them. They're just rugs with animal print on it. She said that there was this thing climbing up the tree that was in the shape of that, and it looked like burnt skin. And apparently, while it was climbing up the tree, it was making a horrific sound, like crackling and crushing, like it was just like popping. And she was sitting around one day with her aunts telling scary stories, as you do in Mexico, and she had the courage to bring it up. And her aunt said, "Oh yeah, we've seen that before. Like if it was normal." Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Noelia. Now, my very first thought here is of a campfire story my cousin told me when I was probably 10 years old. He had just returned from camp or something and had a whole mess of stories. But one that really stuck with me was about a creature like this that terrorized campers on a remote island, somewhere out west here. Witnesses claimed it was large, misshapen, and had what appeared to be burnt skin. Now, the hook of the story ended up being that a few years prior, a forest fire ripped through the area, and in the process, it burned up a young black bear. But against all odds, it survived. But maimed and disfigured by the fire, it was forced to hunt nature's easiest prey: humans. Now, for obvious reasons, that story came to my mind. And I love it, Noelia. So thank you for sharing your mother's story, and for giving me hope that that campfire story just might be true.
One thing about is training.
Send them to us.
But it's
Now, like I said earlier, human history runs deep in Mexico. 10,000 years of advanced culture in that region means that there are many bones in the ground. And sometimes, when you're digging, you come face to face with that history. Just ask Alma, and please welcome her back to the program.
Hello, Derek. This is Alma. I'm actually from Houston, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because I heard G's story on the June 16th episode, which is Volume 3 Shadow People Files. It's not exactly related to Shadow People, but the fact that he talks about his family uncovering bones on the property reminds me of a story that my mother told me a couple of years ago. In Mexico, my father owns a home that my grandmother, his mother, lived in. And the home is actually neighboring two of his brother's homes. So he has two brothers that have property in Mexico as well. Her house was next to one of my uncle's homes. And the reason I bring this up is because a couple of my cousins grew up in that house that neighbored my grandmother's house. And they always talked about having weird experiences in the house that my grandmother lived in. My grandmother would even talk about seeing or sensing some kind of weird shadow. So I guess it is a shadow person. She's unfortunately passed away, so I can't really get a lot of information, but I do remember her bringing that up a couple of times. And then my cousins would tell me that they never liked going to my grandmother's house at night because the lighting wasn't very good, and it was just my grandmother. She only slept in the bedroom. They never really used any of the other rooms because she would just go to my uncle's home to eat and hang out with the family. But they would talk about how they always got a weird sensation, and a couple of times they thought they would see some kind of dark, shadowy thing in the corner of her bedroom. And my grandmother just kind of got used to it, actually. She really didn't think it was that weird. She just thought it was odd. But my cousins refused to go to her home at night. And then about 10 years ago, they were expanding that home, and they had to excavate around it. And in, I think, either the new additional bedroom they were adding or the bathroom of that bedroom, the contractors found bones. So they were excavating for the new foundation, and they found bones there. They basically mentioned it, I think, to my uncle at some point, but no one really brought it up. So they just, when they dug them up, they just buried them back again. And my mother found out a couple of years ago that that's what happened. And at this point, they don't really want to dig up the bones anymore, so they're just staying under the foundation of that house. So I'm wondering if it was related to that uneasy feeling my cousins would get, along with seeing things in that home. And then a couple of years ago, since my parents don't really use that property for anything, they had my uncle take care of it. And one of the things they do is they rent it out. Well, when they rented that house out, one of the tenants they had at one point was a single mom. And no one really knew a lot about her. They just knew she was not from my parents' hometown. She was from another town. And she had moved there because apparently she was escaping an abusive relationship. And somebody murdered her in that house near the same vicinity of the area of where the bones were found. The weird part is people claim they didn't hear anything because she was killed in the middle of the day. So I always wondered if it was maybe just bad luck this poor person was killed, or that property just had some negative energy attached to it because of the bones that were found. But I just thought it was strange that all those things happened in one property. I do know that my parents will eventually have the house excavated again within the next year, because they're going to actually find those bones and give that person a proper burial, whoever that is. It's really sad to think about all the negative things that happened in that home. But I just wanted to share the story. Thanks for what you do. You have a good day, and thank you for listening to my story.
Thank you, Alma. Now, Alma's story got me thinking. What is the proper protocol should you accidentally dig up a human skeleton? Well, after some quick Googling, I learned, thanks to the Florida Division of Historical Resources, that there are certain steps that you legally need to take. First off, stop working. Do not disturb the bones or the soil around them any further. Do not touch. Avoid touching, moving, or collecting any parts of the remains or associated artifacts. Take photos. If possible, take photos of the remains exactly as they were found, noting the date, time, and exact location. And call the authorities. Contact the local police or the sheriff's department immediately. You should also contact the regional medical examiner or coroner, as they may have jurisdiction depending on the age of the remains. And those instructions seem to be pretty similar for just about everywhere here in the United States. So I can only assume that it's probably similar down there in Mexico. So my advice to your parents, Alma, is to let local authorities know when they do begin that remodel. You never know. Doing so might help bring closure to a grieving family somewhere. Or those bones might be a missing link to a historical mystery that's existed for decades. When it comes to bodies buried beneath your home, I think you're gonna want all the good karma you can manage. Thank you as always, Alma, for sharing the entry. Now folks, since the holidays are right around the corner, now is a great time to tell you that we have all your holiday shopping needs in our merchandise shop. Just visit monstersamonguspodcast.com and click the shop tab to get your hands on the spookiest gifts out there, all designed by artists in the paranormal space. And I'm afraid I have a bit of bad news regarding the shop. I'm sorry to have to do this, but for now, we are forced to suspend international shipping, including shipping to Canada. Frankly, the tariffs are killing us. People aren't getting their packages. They're being forced to pay twice their value just to release them. It's been a mess that's cost us a good deal of money. So sadly, until things improve, we will no longer be offering any sort of international shipping. A bummer time of year for that to happen, but unfortunately it's out of our hands. But for those of you in the States, visit monstersamonguspodcast.com and click the shop tab to get all the goods. And we sure do appreciate your patronage. Now, folks, this next entry is pretty damn freaky. Please welcome JW out of the state of Alabama.
Hey, Derek, this is JW calling from North Alabama. This happened around 1996. I was a kid at the time. Me, my family, and some family friends, we had took a trip down to Monterrey, Mexico. There's street vendors, downtown marketplaces, and a lot of people that make, things that are handmade. Where we were at, again, I was a kid, and I saw like a little handmade puppet, very similar to Pinocchio. You can move it with, strings and things like that. And I really wanted it. We got it. Well, later that night, when my family and I went back to our hotel, it was not late in the evening, and out of the blue, the lights went out in our hotel room. And when the lights went out, there was something that looked like a literal lightning bolt flash. It just kind of appeared nearly in the middle of the room. I mean, as quick as lightning, it looked like lightning. It did not look like when a light bulb blows. I'm 35 now. I can look back at that memory and look at, when a light bulb blows today, and I'm like, yeah, that's not what I saw when I was little. And what's crazy is, when my dad, he got up out of his bed and he went to turn the bathroom light on, my doll that my family had purchased for me, the Pinocchio-like doll, it had moved to the center of the room. That was one of the freakiest things that has ever happened in my life. I know there have been tales of haunted dolls all throughout, the world. You got Robert the doll, you got Annabelle the doll. But whatever this was, the power going out, the lightning bolt flash, and that doll apparently moving from my little nightstand dresser to the center of the room on its own. Like, I can't explain that, Anyways, we all love your podcast, man. We love what you do. We appreciate giving us all a platform. Stay easy.
Thank you, JW. Just this week I received a package in the mail, and in that box was a small beaded doll of African origin, and a short note saying that the doll was purchased in Africa, and that the sender's children are downright terrified of it. So of course I gave the piece a good home here in my collection. And so far nothing weird has happened, but I'll certainly keep you posted. Thank you again, JW, for sharing the call.
Because it's the attitude. What is your biggest sides today?
I really didn't expect to see that.
And folks, that takes us to the final call of this evening. Please join me in welcoming Joe out of Texas to the show.
So my name is Joe, and I am from Texas. And in the summertime, I used to go to my grandma's house in a small village about an hour south of the border of Mexico. The town was, Monsters, Tamaulipas was the big city, but if you traveled like maybe 15 to 20 minutes outside of that bigger city, there's a small village named La Jarita, close to Monsters, Tamaulipas. When I started going over there in the summer, I would hear these stories about this shadow man that would show up at night, because this village is out there surrounded by cornfields. So they didn't even have indoor bathrooms back then. And it was one time that when my mom's neighbor had to go to the restroom at an outhouse behind her house, she screamed really loud, Everybody came running, and she said she saw a shadow person staring at her while she was using the outhouse out there. All the neighbors gathered up, went through the cornfield, searched around. They couldn't find anybody. Then my cousins one time were asleep in their room. It felt like somebody was staring at them through the windows because they didn't have any AC units either. So they would sleep with the windows open. And my both cousins screamed really loud. My uncle woke up. My aunt woke up. And they said that there was a shadow person staring through the window. So my uncle ended up putting bars on the windows, and they actually bought an AC unit because they didn't want to sleep with the windows open anymore. And so this shadow person would appear on one side of the town, the other side of town, because the whole town was surrounded by cornfields. And in the town, there was a old lady that was the witch of the village, and she would pay us to bring her owl legs for her witchcraft. And so whenever we would find an owl, we would kill it by throwing either rocks or with slingshot, and they would die, and they were huge. And we would cut the legs off, and we would send them to her, and she would use it for her witchcraft. And so one day, a bunch of friends of mine from the ages between 8 all the way up to 16, 17, we were playing a game of touch. In Spanish, it's called congelado. And across the street from where we were playing touch at, there was an abandoned ranch. We stare across the cornfield to that abandoned barn over there, and there's like at least 3 or 4 huge white owls flying around in circles. And we all point at them. Oh, look, there's some owls flying around over there. Let's go kill them and take the legs off to sell them to the witch of the village. So we stopped playing touch. We started walking through the cornfield that night. It's pretty dark, but the moon is a full moon that day, so it's pretty bright. As we're walking towards the barn, we get pretty close to it. We're talking over there. We're walking like in a group, but we're kind of like marching like side by side, at least 7 of us. As we get close to the barn, we start feeling a bunch of rocks falling from the sky, but they're not stone rocks. They're rocks of dirt, like mud rocks. So they start hitting us on the back and on the head, and they're breaking apart as they're falling down. A lot of them, like if it was raining rocks. And so we start like, what the heck? Who's throwing rocks at us? Thinking there's somebody throwing rocks from the abandoned barn towards where we're at. So we start grabbing rocks, start throwing them back at this barn where these owls are flying over. And so we're throwing rocks, and I'm at the very right side of this group. Like we're in a line side by side. I'm on the very far right. The corn is pretty tall. It's at least over our heads for sure. And in the corner of my eye to the right side, I see like a black figure. It looks like the shape of a person, but squatting down on the corner. Very clearly I see it. I can only see their eyes, kind of bright white. And I'm looking at it, and I'm throwing rocks towards the barn, but I'm also kind of like looking at this thing on the corner of my eye, and I stop throwing rocks and I look at it. And I start staring at it, and I'm like, who's that? I told my friends in Spanish, I say, hey, guys, stop throwing rocks. Who's this person squatting down right next to us? And everybody stops throwing rocks. And when we stop throwing rocks and focus on this person, or what we think is the person, the rocks stop falling. Like, nobody's throwing rocks at us anymore. We're looking at it, but we can't see, like, any shape. It looks like a human, but there's no nose, no... It's like a shadow, but we can definitely see the eyes. And me and my friends are like, hey, who are you? And we're talking at it, all of us. There's like 7 of us. And one of my friends that's like the tough guy of the group had a baseball bat, and he comes pretty close to her and he says, if you don't tell me who you are, I'm going to hit you with my bat. And when he says that, that person thing pops up in the air, like jumps up and stands up and is pretty tall. My friend throws the bat at it and runs in the opposite direction, and we all just run. But I was so scared that I couldn't run fast. I remember trying to run, but I couldn't. I was running really slow. And we start running towards the village, and I looked back to see it, and it's running behind me, but in such a weird way, such a creepy way. It's kind of like skipping with its arms running up and down, very weird. I got even more scared watching it run behind me, that creepy that I almost froze, but my friend grabbed me and pulled me. It was like, come on, let's go, let's go. Get to the edge of the cornfield, and the first house out of the cornfield into the village is my uncle's house. And by the time I get there, they already had knocked on my uncle's door, and they said, hey, that shadow thing is in the cornfield chasing us. My uncle whistles, screams to the whole village. Nobody even asked any questions. Everybody brought their shotguns out, their guns, everything. The whole village gathered up with their flashlights, and they're like, let's look for it. And us, the kids, we stayed there. The adults went in the cornfield. To the back of the village, there was also like a small forest. They went into the forest with cars, trucks, guns, searched for the thing all night. They couldn't find it. But they didn't even ask us any questions because they already knew what it was. And so me and my friends were like, oh my God, that was crazy. What was that? And so nothing happened for a while. And then one day, we ended up going to a quinceañera, which is like a sweet 16, but for 15 years old in Mexico. And so I go with my uncle, my aunt, and my cousin. It ends up finishing like around 12 o'clock at midnight. We come back at midnight, back to the village, to my uncle's home, where I'm staying at for the summer. And my uncle and my aunt have this weird thing. I don't know if they're the only ones that do this, but when my uncle goes uses the restroom at the outhouse, which is behind the house, my aunt would always accompany him, take toilet paper and the flashlight, that she would wait outside while he used the restroom. And so we get back from the quinceañera. They put the kids to bed and everything in the room. On the other room, the AC had broke down, so the kids were going to all sleep in one room with my uncle. And I'm in there while they're laying down going to sleep, and my aunt and my uncle go to the restroom. And all of a sudden, my aunt comes running in by herself, really scared, goes inside the room where I'm at, and the kids are asleep, and she just doesn't even say anything. She just goes straight to the closet, and I'm like, what is she doing? She's going through the closet looking for something. All of a sudden, she turns around with a handgun and some bullets. Handgun on one side, bullets on the other side of it. And she looks at me and she says, here, go help your uncle. He's chasing that thing again. And I was so scared that I said one of the most weakest things I could say. I said, no, I'll stay here with the kids. You go with my uncle. And she said, heck no, I'm not staying here with the kids. You're the man. You go help your uncle find that thing. So I'm like, damn. So I get the gun and I get the bullets. I have the bullets on my right hand and the gun on my left. And I start walking to the back. She locks the door, makes sure nobody comes in. And I'm out there looking for my uncle in the cornfield, trying to help him find this creature. And I keep whispering in Spanish. I say, Uncle, where are you? It's me. Uncle, where are you? I didn't even put the bullets in the gun. The gun had no bullets because that's how scared I was. I kept the bullets in my right hand. And I keep on whispering, Uncle, where are you? Where are you? And I hear him say, hey, don't shoot me. I'm walking up towards you. And he does. I see him, and I'm like, oh, I feel so relieved. I said, here. I give him the bullets. I give him the gun. He said, you need to put the bullets inside the gun. I'm like, I'm shaking. I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. And so we end up waking up the neighbors again. They all grab their rifles and their flashlights, and we, again, start looking for it through the woods, through the cornfield. We could not find it. We never found out what that thing was. We never found it. And that's the last time I remember hearing about that shadow person, that creature in the cornfield. But it didn't happen once. It happened multiple times, and it happened to different people. And that is my story. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Thank you, Joe. You know, there has to be a more humane way to source owl eggs. Surely by now, there are lab-grown options, right? What a gruesome way to make a buck. And in all honesty, a bold move on your part, Joe, given that you were in the land of Lechuza, the owl witch that we talked about earlier. And you know, maybe that's what Joe encountered that day. Lechuza, summoned to avenge the deaths of its fellow owls. But whatever it was there in the corn, we sure are glad that you told us all about it, Joe. Thank you again for calling in. And folks, that's going to do it for this All Mexico episode. We sure do appreciate you joining us here this evening. Now, Monsters Among Us podcast is written and produced by me, Derek Hayes. Copyright Red Crow Media. Additional support is provided by Sarah Carter Hayes, Delaney Bowers, and Connor Ryan. All media used in this production is done so under the protection of fair use. Be sure to join us on our social media pages. Give us a like and follow on YouTube. Leave us a rate and review wherever that sort of thing is possible. And join us in our Discord server to keep the conversation going. Now don't forget, you can catch the show every Saturday evening at 10 p.m. Eastern on the UNX Digital Network. Just visit unxnetwork.com to tune in. Tonight's score was provided by Iron Cthulhu Apocalypse, Co.ag Music, and Carl Casey at Whitebat Audio. Now watch our movie about the Borrego Triangle, that hotspot that we spoke of earlier. Just visit borregotriangle.com to learn how. And join us in the Beyond, where you can get tons of bonus content and ad-free content, all for the cost of a cup of coffee. Visit monstersamonguspodcast.com and click that Patreon tab. Alright, gang, that's all I have for tonight. But I'll be back here on Thursday with a brand new episode. Until then, you keep it spooky and have a good night.